Greetings of the day. In the last lecture of BCom 4th semester Financial Accounting 3rd, we have discussed about the syllabus and the paper pattern of Financial Accounting 3rd, which would be applicable to us for this semester. In this lecture, we are going to start our unit number 1, that is final account of banking companies. Before going to the numerical or question problem for pattern, we will in short discuss about the theory which is been given in your syllabus. So very first thing is the meaning of banking companies. According to the Banking Regulation Act 1949, banking means accepting deposits for the purpose of lending or investment of the money which is collected from the public as deposits and which is repayable on demand or otherwise, or which can be withdrawable by check, draft or other means. Importantly, bank that is categorized only for its bank can be characterized only for its two main function, that is accepting deposits and giving loan, which is the primary function of the bank, which differentiates it from other financial institution. It has right to accept the deposits from the public as per the Banking Regulation Act 1949, which is to be repayable to the particular customer or to the public as on when demanded by them. That is what is the definition of the banking. Then when we speak on the functions of the banking, there are various functions which a bank's or banking company perform, but regardless of those, the bank has two primary function. The very first primary function is the accepting deposits, whereas second is of advancing loans to customer. It is the primary responsibility or it is the prime function of the bank to accept the money from the public as deposits and to advance those money as a loan to its customers on higher interest rate, so that it could make some profit. That is the second function of the bank. Third function, which can be called as ancillary function or other secondary functions of the bank, it can be discounting of bill of exchange. Bank usually has the facility that we have studied in the earlier academic our career, that bank has an facility of discounting bill of exchange on behalf of on the behalf of their customers. That is again the function of the bank. Next is to provide safe deposit vaults to its customer on certain or minimum charges. The banks provide vaults to customer where they can keep their valuable papers, currencies or anything like that. Then to provide exchange of currency, bank also act as an currency exchange for its customer. We can exchange our currency with our banks. That is again a function of the bank. Then banks provide guarantee and indemnity to transactions. There are various transactions for which bank guarantee is being required, and this guarantee is provided by banks to the businessman, say, and indemnity to the transactions. Then is act as an representative or agents. Bank acts as an representative or agent on behalf of government, local civics body and institution. We can see that State Bank of India act as an agent for the government. They make payments on behalf of government or their bodies, or any other bank can also be taken as an example for this. Another there are a number of functions. It can be collection of what we can say bills and checks from third party on our behalf and depositing in the customer's account. Then collection of dividend and interest on the behalf of customers and again deposited it in the accounts of customers. Then keeping custody of valuable articles, documents on behalf of their customer, issuing credit cards, debit cards, credit notes, travelers check. Then acquiring, holding and selling securities and investment on behalf of customers for IPOs or successive issues. These can be the functions which a bank can perform on its on the behalf of its customer, or for the what we can say, for the benefit of the customers. These are the various function of the banking company. Now, what are the restrictions which are being posed on the banks or banking company? Normally, these restrictions are posed for the purpose of loan and advances which a bank give to anyone. So, very first restriction is, there is restriction on commission, brokerage or discount on sale of shares. There is certain restriction that a bank cannot pay commission, brokerage or discount in excess of 2.5% of its paid up capital to anyone. It has a ceiling of 2.5%. Then restriction on raising any loan or advance on security of its own share. Bank cannot advance any kind of loan to anyone who in mortgage is giving shares of the same bank. Bank cannot take its own shares as an collateral for the purpose of giving loans to any of the customers, or cannot provide advance against that. That is again a restriction on the bank. Then bank cannot advance any loan to, number one, any director of the bank, because they are the they can influence the system. Then any partnership firm in which director of the bank, who can be a partner, manager, employee or guarantor, bank will not advance any kind of loan to this partnership firm. Then any company in which director of the bank is director, manager, employee or guarantor, or have any substantial interest in that particular company, bank again cannot provide loan to these companies. All these restrictions with regard to advancing of loan is normally put so that directors would not take undue advantage of any situation, or it cannot hamper the financials or anything of the bank. That is why these restrictions are posed on the banking companies for advancing its loan. Then there are certain provisions of the Banking Regulation Act on banking companies. The very first provision is with regard to the share capital of the bank. According to section 12 of Banking Regulation Act, a banking company must comply with some certain conditions before starting of its business. The very first thing is that its subscribed capital should not be less than half of its authorized capital, and its paid up capital should not be less than half of its subscribed capital, because without this a bank cannot start its business. That is the very first thing. It cannot have less than if suppose authorized capital is of 1000 crore, it should have at least subscribed capital of 500 crore and paid up capital of at least 250 crores. Second thing is, any banking company which is incorporated after 30 June 1994 is eligible to issue its equity shares only. Third condition is, a shareholder of a bank is entitled not to hold more than 1% of total voting rights of all share. It means that one cannot hold more than 1% of share in a particular bank. This is because it should have the proper what we can say, voting rights to each shareholder in the bank, and should not have due influence of only certain person. That is the first provision. Second provision is with regard to the payment of dividend. As per section 15, a bank cannot distribute dividend to its shareholder until and unless it write off all capital expenditure. Which capital expenditure? It can be preliminary expenses, certain organizational expenses, or we can say that any commission or brokerage which is been due for the issue of equity shares. That is what is the criteria for making of payment of dividend. Third thing is the statutory reserve. This is the most important criteria with regard to our questions also. According to section 17, a bank should transfer 25% of its profit to statutory reserve before declaring any kind of dividend. It means that in question, when we are going to solve the problems, we have to make 25% of provision for statutory reserve, and after that we are going to put the rest of the amount for declaration of the dividend. That is what is the criteria saying because it is necessary for every banking company to create statutory reserve. It can be under subheading of reserves or fund or general reserve, and it is mandatory for banking companies to prepare this reserve compulsory on each year. Then next is for the cash reserves. As per section 18, banks in India is required to maintain 10% of total time and demand liabilities in India as cash reserve. Cash reserve is eitherly to be maintained with SBI or with the RBI or any other banking authority which are notified by the central government. Usually this purpose of cash reserve is partly for payment of cash or partly in form of current deposits. Reserve Bank can at any point of time increase this cash reserve up to 15%. Apart from this, we can see that at every quarter we can see there is revision in the rates of cash reserve ratio, that is CRR. Again there is an reserve known as statutory liquidity reserve SLR rate, that is what which is also required by the bank to maintain statutory liquidity reserve. Reserve Bank has the power to increase the statutory liquidity reserve up to 40%. With regard to 10% of cash reserve, every bank is required to maintain 25% of demand and time liabilities in form of liquid assets with RBI. This liquid asset can either be in form of cash, gold or specified securities by the RBI. This reserve, which is of 25%, is known as statutory liquidity reserve, and it can be increased up to 40% from 25% by RBI. Then non-banking asset is the next provision in the Banking Regulation Act 1949. Usually non-banking asset means those assets which are acquired by banks not for its own use. We can say that if any customer fails to pay the loan, and in such case bank usually tend to remind them, and even if the customer fails to pay the loan and service the interest, at such point of time bank has been given right under the various acts that they can attach the securities which has been mortgaged for such loan, and bank has right to sell that property or sell that security and realize the amount of loan with interest. These assets which are held as security by the bank in their possession until such assets realized or sold. As per section 19, these assets are required to be disposed of within 7 years. The bank usually held these assets in their balance sheet on asset sides under the heading of other assets, because usually bank is not entitled to own that asset. These assets are only as a security given by the customer to the bank, and bank has clear right to sell off these assets to realize their loan amount as well as interest. Last one is for the income from non-performing assets. I will give a brief on the non-performing assets. When a customer fails to service the interest or repay the installment for consecutive 3 times, that account is classified as non-performing asset. It means that that account is not particularly giving us revenue, or they are not servicing the interest, and hence it is considered as non-performing asset, which is not very good even for bank or for the customer. So with this thing, we can see that interest is the main income source for the bank, and usually this income is from the loan which banks advance to its customer. Hence income of bank is dependent upon the interest and recovery of the loans. The Narsimhan committee has recommended RBI that the income concept should not be restricted only to the extent of interest covered, and interest on should be considered as an income only when it is recovered, we cannot just book it on accrual basis, but we have to consider when it is recovered, then we can term it as an income, otherwise it should not be considered as an income. So loan accounts which have lost productivity due to non-payment or non-recovery of interest in a specific period of time are known as NPA. This is a structured definition which you can note it down. And on the recommendations of Narsimhan committee, RBI has directed bank not to charge interest on non-performing assets. We can even though in accounting language we can understand it as doubtful debts, and not to credit this interest because it is on charged on the non-performing assets. According to IFRS, that is International Financial Reporting Standards, this is also a correct method which is should be maintained or followed or recommended by the banks as per the recommendation of as per the recommendation of IFRS and Narsimhan committee RBI directives. It is clear that the interest on doubtful debts will be considered as income only when they are being recovered by the banks from the customer on the cash basis, not on the accrual basis, because we have seen in the past years that various times the interest has been waived off and the income has been not considered, hence the income cannot be considered. That is why the provision was for the income of interest from the non-performing assets. This was it for the provisions. In this lecture we have seen this. In the very next lecture we will start with the pro forma of the final account of the banking companies. Until then, stay tuned.